welcome to another episode of the Tell Not Show. As always, we're your hosts. We have the fabulous Kirsha Fox, author of The Son of Deception and The White Leaf Child. She's a homeschooling mom of four, avid reader, and gamer.
And my co-host is Julia J.K. Allen, editor, author, and author coach. She's a fantasy and horror author who loves to sprinkle magic on everything. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, and we're very excited to welcome our guest tonight. Why don't you tell us all about them, Kirsha?
Yes, we have Mack Little. She grew up in the Deep South and has accumulated a vibrant experience in which she often emulates in her storytelling. Her studies in international politics and her service in the Army have given her impressive perspectives to bring to her novels new layers of intrigues and twists, which are all quite prevalent in her last novel, Daughter of Hades.
Yes, welcome to the show. If I can hit the right button. Yay! Thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your writing journey? What got you started as an author, and what's it look like for you so far?
Oh, well, I've always wanted to write as long as I can remember. My imagination's always been running away with me. I'm a daydreamer, always have been. When I was around 12 years old, I decided I wanted to write a novel, and I got my first typewriter. And so when I was that age, there was the Atlanta child murders were going on. And I was like, oh, I'm going to write a book about this at 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
but there's always been something about horror and mystery and things that draws my imagination to creating stories. And even though Daughter of Hades and my series is a historical romance, I can't get away from the horror and my love of the genre. But yeah. So
yeah. No, I really love that you had like a typewriter and everything, like the whole setup as a 12-year-old, and just like writing your first story. I found some old writing of mine a couple years ago from like when I was like around that age, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like it's so fun to like see that like you were writing and creating stories back then, but then you like read it, you're just like, oh my god. Like, reading old writing can sometimes be horror in itself, right? So
absolutely, it turns on. My editor turns on, automatically. It's like,
right, and you're just like, oh, I can see all the growth I've had since this moment. Right. Yes. So, you mentioned that you love writing horror and it kind of like finds its way into other genres that you write. But what is the specific appeal of the genre for you? Like, what is it about horror that just like is your sweet spot?
It's being able to safely, for me, examine the things that I fear, and the evocative nature of the genre. I mean, you feel the emotions that it evoke are kind of pure,
right?
Fear, dread, and I think those feelings may be a little bit easier to access, and something that I always want to examine and see what the root causes are. So I grew up with a Pentecostal background, and there was demons everywhere. And so the first novel I published was a vampire novel that figured heavily with demonology. And doing the research for that novel, I was able to research the history of demons and the Abrahamic religions, and going back further to Samaria before the monotheism kicked in. All the demons that were in the Bible were actually gods before then. They were just demonized, once monotheism came in. And so it was interesting seeing that history, and then and developing characters based on what I learned. It was, yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, that sounds
Okay.
fascinating.
yeah.
I loved one of my favorite things to do when it comes to writing horror is like looking at like what scares me and why and what scares other people and why. And so it can be
Mhm.
such a fun exploration to
It
just
is.
like think about it and try and incorporate those different elements into your writing. And yeah, horror
Abs-
is a genre like I never thought I'd find myself writing horror, and then I like fell in love. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a like a fear of corpses, of dead bodies,
Right, right.
and one of the story I was writing, I did this deep dive on
Yeah.
autopsies, and you know, actually having to handle the body. It was I don't
Right.
know what it was about that, but it was like kind of facing my fear and
Yeah.
kind of exercising it, maybe.
What a powerful moment. But like, yes, I understand. Like, there's just something that feels so fundamentally wrong, right? About somebody, once they're gone and they're no
Uh,
longer them. So I think it's a pretty common fear, I think, that people have, but like how powerful to like exercise it and kind of meet it face on, like you said.
Yeah, writing is therapy, right?
Yes, no, it is.
Yeah.
It's very therapeutic. Yes.
You don't have to answer if like this is weird, but you just said you had to like handle a dead body to sort of like research.
Oh yeah, that's for research. I didn't touch a dead body.
Okay.
They still creep me
Yeah.
out.
Yes, right.
But you
Right.
know, but I had a character. He's a medical examiner, and he had to.
You had to know the process.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had to know the
Okay.
process, and I watched the YouTube. They actually have autopsies on
Mhm.
YouTube,
They
and
do.
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
and so I just
Yes.
really
That
faced
would
it.
be yeah, that would be very much so, like, exposure therapy to the extremes of facing your
Mhm.
fear, and yeah, well, kudos to you for doing it for the research. I'm sure that that scene was, like, even more powerful because you were able to, like, access it accurately, and all of that, but, oh my gosh, they have all kinds of stuff on the internet.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, thank God for the internet because for
Right,
research and
right.
I spend a lot of my time in the past. I write historical fiction.
Yeah.
There's not there's not a lot of stuff laying around about the 17th century. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
so I
Yeah.
rely a lot on YouTube and
Yes.
Google Earth and trying to you know get my mind into like the primitive setting, the primitive
Right.
state of whatever it is I'm trying to write
Yeah,
about.
right. No, thank God for the internet for sure. It's one of the
Yeah,
modern
yeah,
marvels that like I think like I know me and Kirsha were alive before the internet and it's just like so amazing how like quick and everything that it's developed
I
and
know.
yeah, it's
I
wonderful.
was like 25 when the internet hit. I was like, what did I
Right.
do before
Right.
then?
I know. We looked up things by the Dewey Decimal System at the library and it took
Yes.
an hour to find anything and it sucked. Yeah. I always say like we have no patience nowadays because it used to be like yeah if you had a question you had to like
You just
go to
didn't
the
know.
library and look it up and you had to
Right.
wait like a week to get the book in you know what I mean like there was
Hmm. Yeah.
finding out the answer to like that argument you're having with your friend like wanting to be right like now it's so easy we just look it up on our phones yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your writing process? How do you go from idea to finished manuscript?
Whoa, let's see. So usually, I love movies and I love watching TV. And a lot of the things I see on TV kind of sparks my interest. So I've always like had a I've always loved historical romance novels with swashbuckling adventure and pirates and whatnot. And I never really seen persons of colors, figure prominently in those stories. And I discovered Black Sails, where they had a really diverse cast, and it really sparked my imagination, especially the idea of Maroons, or the self-liberated enslaved people.
Right.
They formed their own communities, and they fought against the man, and often won. And I was like, who are these people, and why haven't I learned about them? So that was the kernel of the story of the series that I'm writing now. And so I found myself studying the Maroons in Jamaica, and turns out Jamaica was owned by the Spanish prior to the English invasion in 1655, and the Maroons worked with the Spanish, their former enslavers, to keep the British off the from getting a foothold in the island. And they fought for like 5 years, and the British just could not get a handle on them. And they ended up having to sign a treaty. And this community today still has some degree of autonomy, even today, from the historical struggles. So I want to write about that, but as I do research about each of my characters and their journey, then the story kind of expands. And I wanted to show other populations in the Caribbean that are underrepresented. And and a lot of people don't know that there was a robust trade between Asia and the Caribbean during that time. China based its currency on the silver that was mined in Mexico. Mexico imported Filipino slaves, African slaves from the Philippines. The Philippines had an Interpol. And so I brought a character in from China, and he's exiled from China. The story takes place during the fall of the Ming Dynasty. So, I pull that in. So, yeah. So as I find a character or an idea I want to explore, then I have to research the history surrounding it, and it just happened around 1649 is where I start my story. And in the 1600s, there was a mini ice age, and that caused all kinds of political and social disruption, and possibly led to the fall of the Ming Dynasty, because there were plagues, drought, famine, and the Manchurians, were unhappy with the current system, so they overtook it. And then in England, around the same time, King Charles I was beheaded by Cromwell, and you have all this upheaval. And,
Right.
Yeah, and it's kind of all related, and I love weaving all that together into a story. And
Okay.
Yes.
So,
No,
I have so much respect for historical fiction writers. Just there are so many details to keep track of, like all these little anachronisms you have to watch out for constantly, even down to would they even know that word or that phrase, or
exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. When was the origin?
Sometimes I take liberties. I do vet it. I go through, after my first pass, I go through a critique group. I workshop it. And then, I go through the editors and the beta readers, and they catch all the anachronisms and things that I get wrong. But some things I do on purpose, like cuss words. The F word just doesn't, it didn't exist before the 19th century, or wasn't really popularly used. But sarded and got what is it, zounds, just doesn't sound the same. So I just take liberties there, and
like this is a close approximation to what they would be saying.
Yes. And I think that makes sense, that certain things like swear words, like the equivalent of the F word, you can replace with the F word, I'm sure. People don't have too much of an issue with that. Yes, I love that you really celebrating like history that we don't know a ton about too, as I feel like as readers too, and that representation is so important.
Yeah, it is important. And also for me, usually when you talk about history, Africans in terms of that time period,
Mm-hmm.
people want to focus on slavery and the
Right.
victimization of a population, and that's not what I want to focus on. I want to focus on um, how we subverted the
Mm-hmm.
system, how we got around the system and fought it,
Right.
um, and also I want to put in a romantic context, an adventure
Mm-hmm.
context, something that's fun and not. I don't want to re-traumatize. I mean, I feel
Right.
re-traumatized every time I read something about slavery or civil rights. I want to read something with magic and adventure and romance,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
people of color want to see themselves in those situations.
Absolutely.
But I think the white gaze it encourages the publication of social struggle books or whatever.
Right. Right.
But I'd like to imagine us in different contexts. And
Yeah, there's something just about black joy and just celebrating the happy moments in life, and escapism is
yeah,
we
it's
all need
just joy.
escapism. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
It's just joy. It's just magic. It's romance and adventure.
yes,
And there's a
yes,
space for us in there. And doing my research,
yeah,
there were, Black pirates and the
of
Buccaneers who
course.
worked with the Maroons and to
Mm,
to raid plantations and pirates and slaves and Maroons, they worked together to
Mhm.
subvert the system constantly.
of
So
course, yeah.
yeah.
So I didn't hear about Maroons until I started reading the Outlander series.
Mm,
Ooh,
They were
yeah,
mentioned a few times in her last few
mm,
books. And so many times when I'm reading like historical fiction, I'm like, I was never taught about this. And
right.
so I think that there is so much value to your work because people read these and they like, oh, I had no idea that this
Let
was
me
here,
learn
that
more.
this
Yeah,
happened.
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
So I
exactly.
think that you're not taking away, you're adding to the narrative. You're saying there are so
right.
many more stories than
Right.
what you are being told, that the world is bigger, than this narrow view that you're taking, as in there's only one
Right,
Black experience.
Yes, exactly.
right. I love that.
Exactly.
I love that so much. What do you think is like the most important part of writing for you?
uh, the most important part, I guess, getting it down the first time is the most important part. That is the hardest part for me. And
Yes,
once I get the story down, then it's like having a lump of clay there, and then I can just
right.
mold it and sculpt it. I'm working, I'm starting a new book now, and I'm just and for like the past 3 months, it's just been a lump of clay that I've been writing
Mhm.
scenes and trying to get the story from point A to point B, but it really didn't have any structure or detail. So now, as I'm getting close to the middle of the book, the details are coming more into focus. So I have to go back and sculpt it and
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
add the details. So yeah, writing just getting the raw material, I guess, down on the
Yes.
page
Yes.
and not worrying about how it sounds or what's missing or whatever. Just get it down there and then I can make it pretty later.
Yes. One of my favorite quotes is someone says that they're just shoveling sand into a box to build sandcastles later, right? That's
Exactly.
the
Yes, that's a great analogy.
we're telling ourselves the story so that we can make it look like we knew what we were doing the whole time. That's a Neil Gaiman quote, right? So,
Mhm,
yes, I
Oh
love that
goodness,
analogy.
yes.
mhm.
I love the way you put that. And I mean, just even today, I'm texting Julia going, my work is garbage. And she's like, just finish the first manuscript, then go
Mhm.
back. Because there's so many times where you just want to throw the whole thing in the garbage and start over. And
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
can't keep restarting and restarting and restarting, hoping for perfection the first time. You have to
right.
finish it and keep reworking it, even though that is the hard thing to do sometimes.
Yeah, I
Just
was
trusting the
struggling with losing
process.
hope.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's like, is this any good? Am I wasting my time?
Mhm.
But I have to keep going and then keep
Yes,
right.
moving.
Yeah, I think that
absolutely.
imposter syndrome is like such a real thing for writers, especially because we have like we see the writers that we love, and you talked about this a lot, Kirsha, about comparing our drafts to like finished products of authors who've been writing for decades. You know what I mean? And just
Mhm.
seeing like feeling like we're lacking, but it's so important to just like you said, finish the story, write the story. You can always work on it once it's written, but you can't really do anything if you don't write it. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So, do you
Right.
feel like you focus more on characters or more on plot?
Character, definitely. I start with a character and I create a character sheet with a detailed history and
Okay.
um, and then yeah, and as I'm writing this character's back history, other characters are born, and
Right.
yeah,
Mhm,
and
That's the
mhm.
fun
and so on and
part.
so on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's definitely character driven.
Okay. Would you
Yeah.
consider yourself like more of a plotter or more of a pantser?
Total pantser.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, I do when I write a scene,
Mhm.
I do use a worksheet to, tell me who the point of view is and um, where what action needs to happen and what the setting is and
Right.
maybe what flashbacks are included or exposition. So I do a worksheet on the scene, but I find doing outlines are futile. Um,
Okay.
I can't, I mean, once I have a direction that the story is going, my characters will take me in a completely different direction. And it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, why even bother? But I use Scrivener for novel writing. So
Okay.
as I write my scenes and put them in order, Scrivener creates an outline for me. So I can go
Perfect.
back
Yeah.
and look at the generated outline and then, you know, add structure to my
Yeah.
story once it's written.
No,
That's a
that's
good use
very
of tools.
helpful. Yeah, that's very helpful. I always say like it's great to have an outline before you begin editing because you can see like, oh, I've got so much of character A, but like where's character C? Like they're barely in the story. You can see the
Exactly.
imbalances with an outline very quickly. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I really rely heavily on the novel writing software. And
Yeah.
now that I'm writing a series, I've learned about the concept of writing a Bible, and so that's what I'm working on
Right.
right now is my series Bible. And I'm listing all the characters from all the books and
Right.
all the different
Right.
scenes, and yeah, and
Do you do that digitally then?
yeah, I do it digitally, and also
Okay.
I have like character sheets in
Right. I was
words,
about to say a
and
binder works great for a
Mhm.
series Bible like that. Yeah.
yeah, but I have a software. I can't remember what the name of it. I can look it up
Okay.
later, but you can attach your documents. So I
Oh,
attach my
nice.
character
Yeah.
sheets to, or sometimes I attach a whole chapter or whatever,
Right. Right.
to um, the blocks in the
Mhm.
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh.
yeah,
Yeah. Thank
yeah.
God for
So
technology again. Yeah.
yeah, I know, right?
Well, it helps you
I
keep
didn't
track of
realize.
all
Yeah.
those threads. Yeah.
Yeah, and I use bibliography software for my resources so that I
Oh,
can have
nice.
author
Yeah.
notes and give the reader something to refer to. When
Right.
I drop an interesting historical note, they can
Yeah.
research it for
Yeah.
themselves.
Very cool. Yes. Oh my God. I'm gonna have to like find out what software you use after the show, because that sounds fabulous. Um, do you have a favorite author, and what do you think they do really well?
Oh my God. Okay, I let's see. I worship Cormac McCarthy. I love his imagery, um, the stark beauty of his writing.
Hmm.
His description, his powers of description are so amazing. And I read and reread his books to emulate them. And
Yes.
um, and Octavia Butler, she is a storyteller extraordinaire. Not only is she a storyteller, I think she's a bit of a prophet, because some of the books she's written like The Parable of a Sower, it predicted what's going on today.
Right.
It's like she saw, what our society was leading to. And
Right.
she's a wonderful storyteller, world builder, and she does, her stories are sci-fi and horror, but they're so human and
Right.
poignant. And yeah, so Octavia Butler, Cormac McCarthy,
Right.
and I have to also mention John Irving. He is the best storyteller. He can just spin plots that are so interesting and wild and wonderful. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, don't get me started.
I know it's hard to list just a few when it comes to like our favorite authors.
And Diana Gabaldon, I mean, her Outlanders series inspired me to write the historical novel. I'm like, oh, you can have romance, you can have steamy romance and history.
Right. Right.
I want to try that.
Yeah, no. I also really enjoy John Irving. He's good at what he does. Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
So. Yeah.
I read The Son of the Circus like regularly. Like Son of the Circus is something I read regularly because he has so many storylines in it, and he does flashbacks, and the storytelling is very complicated. And Cormac McCarthy, I read Blood Meridian, over and over to look at his descriptions and how his characters travel. Yeah, so
traveling is hard to do very well in fiction. I remember the first like big attempt at a novel, and I got like to 40,000 words, and then I realized like I have them traveling for days to like the center of the to some location, and then it's like in 2 days they get all the way down south, and I was like, Julia, where's your logic, right? Yeah. Who can travel for days and then just like magically be far down south in 2 days? Like
tricky little plot holes like that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's just like, yes, baby author Julia did not know what she was writing. So speaking of baby authors, if you could tell a new author one thing, what would you share with them? Like what advice would you share?
Write no matter what. If you don't have a story to write, journal. And usually, like I go for walks every morning, and sometimes I'll describe a sunset. I'm like, because when you're doing your setting, and you're sitting at your desk and you're trying to like describe a sky. Well, if you go around and you describe what you see in your day-to-day life, you can apply it. And when you travel and you see the beautiful scenery, write it down. So keep a journal with you always, and write every day. Just even if it's for like 30 minutes, write.
Yeah.
Because that's how you're gonna get good at it, and that's how you're gonna exercise those muscles of description and dialogue.
I love that advice to like practice describing things that we see in the world, and that you can use it in writing later, because that's so true that like we will notice moments like a beautiful sunset, but like taking the practice of writing about the beautiful sunset and how would we describe it, that's really good advice.
How do you make time for writing?
I have a set schedule, and everybody knows about it, and nobody bothers me. Well, they bother me. Oh, my husband.
You're not
my
supposed to bother
my
you.
husband says he says you could be such a I write with a lot of distractions in the background. I have the television going when I'm
Right.
writing, and I'm smoking a cigar, and I might have a little drink, and there's all kinds of noise going on, but I kind of need that background
The
noise,
chaos. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, to write. And he's like, "How do you concentrate?" And he's like, "You would be such a better writer if you turned all this stuff off and listened to ambient music." And I was like, "I would go insane if I had to listen to
Right.
if I
Yeah.
had quiet." So yeah, but it's like I work. I have my day job. I work from 7 to 4:30, and then I move down to either the patio or my cigar lounge, and um, and I start smoking and I start writing.
Yeah. I love that you have a cigar lounge. That is so like
That's how
sophisticated. It's
that.
sophisticated. That's like fancy. I remember in college having like wine parties because I wanted to be sophisticated, right?
Thank you for making me feel like something more than an addict, because I'm totally
Oh,
addicted. I'm addicted to cigars. I like a
yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the struggle is real. I used to smoke cigarettes, so I get it on some level, but cigars I could never figure out because you're not really supposed to like inhale everything. You gotta
yeah,
like
but it
just yeah,
absorbs. The
yeah.
nicotine absorbs through your mouth, and you get hit. Trust
Right,
me.
right. I would just make myself sick trying. But yes. Do you have a favorite part of writing?
I enjoy editing. Yeah, I enjoy editing, going back in and giving my stuff shape, and
Yeah.
it's really difficult for me not to do that during the
The
process,
creative.
the
Yeah.
creative. So what helps me with that is I write longhand. I write everything out
Yes.
longhand.
Okay.
So tonight I'll write my passages. Tomorrow I'll type it and I can edit it when I type it up.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then I can keep moving forward with the story. So,
Yes, yes. Oh my
but
gosh,
editing
yeah.
is my favorite part.
I used to write. I wrote my first two novels out longhand as well. But then I hated typing it up, so I just went to the computer after that. But there is something nice about the way the way your creativity works when you're doing it by hand. Like it does feel different.
Yeah. And I use a fountain pen, and
Oh, fancy. Yeah.
yeah. And this is some ritual to
Yeah.
changing the ink, and the way the nib feels on the page.
Yes, that
And
scratching that you get with a glide.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, I really like I write longhand. And
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes I don't feel like typing it up, so I'll wait till the weekend. But I
Right.
get to it eventually.
Right, right. I think my problem is I'd write the whole novel because I just procrastinate typing it up. Then you have to type up the whole novel, and that's just a pain in the butt, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Well,
I
it
like
makes
your
sense
idea.
to me that you would use a fountain pen because you write historical fiction. Like, what better way to
Right.
get yourself
Ah.
In the
in that
mindset.
yeah, that
Mhm.
frame of mind than to use an old pen and paper and to be like in your zone, you know?
Yeah. I love that. It's so aesthetic too. Like you had your typewriter, now you've got your fountain pen. Like I love the rituals you're creating for writing though, and like really truly like accessing that like the vibe and the feel that you want when you do it. I love that.
Yeah, and it gives me a freedom. If I'm looking at if I'm trying to type it straight on the
Right.
computer, I want it to look perfect, on the
Right.
screen.
Yeah.
But when I'm writing, I feel like I have more freedom to
Yeah.
mess up,
Yeah.
or to just write what's in my thoughts. And you know, I know it's not encouraged, and I shouldn't suggest it, but having a glass of wine helps loosen me up. And if something sounds ridiculous, I'll write it anyway. And
Right.
then
Right.
maybe it sometimes it finds its way into the story. So
Yeah.
A lot of very well-known and renowned authors
Yeah.
also write that way or wrote that way. So I think you're in good company.
Yes, I think you are as well.
All right. So what is your least favorite part of writing then?
Once I turn it into the editors or the publisher.
Right. Right.
So it's painful. You want to cut
Yeah.
what?
Right. Getting the notes back.
No,
Yeah.
I absolutely have to have 200,000 words for this novel. It won't work. Yeah,
Right.
which
Yes.
is the wrong answer. Yeah, cutting is like cutting my soul out.
Yeah. Because you put so much.
And
Yeah.
what do you mean you don't like how that sounds?
Right. Excuse me. Wait a
Yeah,
minute here. Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm learning to let go of my ego. It's a
Right.
process.
It definitely is. No, I know you always hear that you have to have a thick skin as a writer. And it is true. You're writing out there, people are going to critique it or criticize it or whatever they want to do with it. But it is a process of getting to that point where you're able to say, like, this is something I made, but it is not me, right? And I
Mhm.
still have worth even if you don't like this thing that I made, cuz people are allowed to have bad taste, right?
Yeah.
Right. People are allowed to think what they want,
Yeah.
so it's yeah.
And plus they've been editing, longer than I've been writing, so they know what they're talking
Right.
about. So
Right.
I just try to turn my brain off and just make the changes
Yeah,
they tell me to make and
right.
just trust that it's gonna work. And it does. It
Right.
absolutely does in the end. I'm always happy with, how it turns out.
Yeah. No, that's good. I can understand why it's your least favorite though. Um, what do you say would influence your writing? What are your influences for writing?
Influences. Um, that's my it's it's my whole reason for writing in the genres that I write in is
Mm.
um to to put marginalized persons in a different context rather
Right.
than victimization.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, to that's my mission is to imagine, Black characters, strong Black female leads, as a
Right.
romantic interest, as a hero, an adventurer, and
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, and yeah. So like TV shows today, they go back and retrofit, novels by diversifying the cast, which I
Mhm.
totally approve of. But hopefully, I'm creating some source material, and there are other people out there creating source material that's already diverse that will be rich for storytelling in film.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that is like great that you're telling like other stories for your audience, like that are not just
Yeah.
hardships and yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just for us, it's for people of other races to be able to
Right.
imagine us in different contexts. So when a white writer writes about a
Yeah.
person of color, they don't have to automatically go to the cultural baggage and try to
Right.
solve problems. They can just, they can
Yeah.
imagine, a Black pirate.
Yeah. No, yeah, and they did exist. Yes.
Yeah,
um
How do you deal with writer's block?
I write.
Just keep
That
writing.
yeah, that's my advice to young writers is to write
mhm.
no matter what. You got writer's block, keep writing. When I get stuck on one story, I usually write from different characters' point of view. So I'll just switch point of views and write it from there, or I'll go to another spot in the story that's easier
Yeah.
to handle and write that part. or I'll go back and
Right.
edit or something like that. But I keep writing.
Yes, I'm a big fan of the skip option that we have. Like, I feel a lot of people get stuck in this mindset that like we have to write in order and we have to write chronologically and it's a sequence and I can't move forward until I write this really difficult scene. But like if you're struggling with a scene, like make a note to yourself, like difficult conversation between mom and dad or mom and daughter, and then skip and just keep
Right.
going and write the easier scenes. Yes.
Yeah, that works for me really well.
Right, right. I think that that is very freeing as well. And so, yeah, try it. I love skipping.
What would you say has been your most significant writing victory so far?
Finishing my first book. I mean, I told you I wanted to be a writer since I was like 12 years old. And I went to college and, and got my English degree. And my mentor or professor said, well, you're not ready to write yet. You need to live first. And I'm like, oh, that must really suck. So I joined the Army because I can't afford to go to graduate school. And then I get married and have kids and, go to graduate school. And then, and I look up and I'm 40 years old and I haven't written anything. So when I was 45, I finally buckled down and wrote my first novel.
Yes, yes, it is quite an accomplishment. Out of everyone who wants to write a novel, very few actually get to that finished result. So kudos, yes, congratulations on that. And there's no better, like, it's such a great feeling, like when you hold your book in your hands for the first time and you're like, oh my gosh, I wrote this. Yes, yes.
Nothing like it.
Yeah, and I was about to say I would not have even known that you were over 45.
I'm 55. I turned 55 last week.
Yes, you look amazing. Yes.
Oh, you're very kind.
I was, when you said you didn't write a book until 45, I was like, what? Wait a minute. Love that. Are you reading anything right now?
I am reading a fantasy called Untold by, I think it's R.L. Clark. Okay. And she's a female Black author that writes sci-fi. So I'm trying to, I don't read a lot of sci-fi fantasy. So I'm just trying to like, look at what other Black authors are doing in the genre. And kind of compare it to see what's different and and why they aren't mainstream.
Right. No, it's great.
So
especially during Black History Month to read Black authors.
Yeah.
Do you have any writing advice that you just like hate, like does not work for you, doesn't gel, or
outlining does not work for me.
Right.
People tell you to outline and create story arcs and all that. Structure and rules are an anathema to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So if you tell me there's a rule, then I'm gonna break it.
Right. Love that. Yes. Yeah. And we're self-aware about it, right? I love that. No, I feel like I struggle with ADHD, and I feel like I definitely relate to the PDA, the just like defiant, don't tell me what to do. If you tell me what to do, I'm not doing it now. Like even if I was gonna do it 2 seconds ago, now we're not,
Well, it's one thing to make mistakes. It's another, like you should know the rules, but know the rules and then break them on purpose.
Yeah. Absolutely love that. Yeah. So we do want to give you an opportunity to let everyone know where they can find out more about you and your books online. So perfect time to share your socials and all of that.
Yes. Oh, okay, great. You can find me online on my webpage, Mack, MACK Little, LITTLE.com. And I'm on Amazon.com under Mack Little. Just search Mack Little, and I should come up there for authors. And you can also find me on Facebook, author Mack Little, and on Instagram at ZenBaby, ZenBabie.
Okay, very nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute joy talking with you.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Yes, I know. We love talking about writing with other writers. It's so much fun. Yes, and thank you to everyone who's listening along at home. Remember, there's more than one way up a mountain, and our next episode releases on Friday, as always. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, you can find us on social media at The Tell Not Show, or email us at thetellnotshow@gmail.com. Thanks again.
Thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed the show, consider subscribing and liking. We appreciate all the support. Julia J.K. Allen is an author, editor, and coach, and can be found at hijingsrudder.com.
Kirsha Fox is an author, avid reader, gamer, and mother to four, and you can find her at kirshafox.com. Thanks, and see you next time.